Seth, happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, Scott. How we doing?
Well, you probably noticed we changed locations, not very far. Went from my office to my bedroom.
I just thought you got really into mysticism while we were away. But I guess there's a method to the madness here.
Dude, I'll tell you. So I live in, I think I've told our audience, but in a Melrose Place type apartment complex in LA. And everyone's so interested in my apartment because it was refurbished. So it took a whole basically 6 months for them to do it, to refurbish the whole thing. So when we're at the pool and everyone's having the pool parties, if people want to go and check out the place. So these girls came over and they go into my bedroom and they go, "Oh, does your son live here?"
I mean,
And I go,
I
"Son?"
can't say I blame that question. That's all I'm saying.
They're like, "Oh," and this other girl sees I have a, well, I don't want to turn the camera, but I have like a Led Zeppelin poster, a flag, black light. She's like, "Oh, this is like a wizard room. Are you into that type of stuff?"
Scott, you got it. Let's be real. You got a couple crystals sitting away somewhere, I suspect. I haven't seen them, but I believe it.
I just said like, "Oh no, this is my room. I'm kind of like that guy in the 40-year-old virgin. I'm that dude, And I still don't have a car." And they're like, "Yeah, everyone knows this guy needs to get laid."
But you
But
do have an action figure of the $6 million man's boss, right?
yeah, oh, for sure, dude. That I painted myself.
Oh yeah.
But funny enough, it's quite interesting because my married friends all come here because it's so exciting because they can meet single girls and they can interact with people that aren't married. But the people here are in their late 20s and early 30s, and they're looking to get married. And very apropos to our week's topic, which is all about wedding and wedding music and wedding mixes. Uh, and ironically, Seth, you and I are not married.
Yes, but that said, we have been to many weddings. We discussed this before. I do feel like we are reasonably well qualified to have this discussion as someone who has their antennas up for how music affects crowds and kind of has a pulse on like what's good, what's bad, what helps cultivate a vibe. I think we've been to enough to have a pretty good sense of what works and what doesn't, and I'm excited to kind of jump into that and talk some specifics with you.
Definitely. I think we are the eternal best man of weddings, planning bachelor parties, showing up. Everyone's excited to hear about our lives. I've
Yes.
noticed at weddings, especially who we're bringing, of course. But
And I am in the mental state of wedding prep myself. My brother's bachelor party is next weekend, and the wedding is in about a month and a half. So I this is very top of mind for me, and maybe will inform some of the requests that I make at the wedding. We shall see.
well, one of the great parts is the wedding is the reception, right? Everyone goes through the actual formality, the I do's and all that, but it's really about the reception and about the dance. Uh, we're talking about the wedding mix. And Seth, what makes for a good wedding mix? Here you have your brother, who I know very well, is getting married. What are you in charge of? There's a DJ, is there a band? There's all these questions.
You know what? I'm embarrassed to say I don't know the answer to that question. Uh, things are being played very close to the vest from what I've seen, but I assure you that I will make my presence felt come day of the wedding, via requests or something otherwise. But I'm surprised I have not been solicited to help out. But I look forward to, like I said, making my presence
Well,
felt when we get there. So
there could be a reason. An obvious reason is that they don't want you behind the decks.
maybe they're
Wheels of
worried that I'm just
steel.
I'm gonna go too deep cut on them. I'm not sure, which is a good segue of, like you said, what makes a good mix. So
Yeah.
maybe the first question we start with, Scott, and I'll pose it to you, is DJ or band? What's your ideal wedding setup?
Well, let me say this. I think it should go DJ, unless you have a very themed party. Let's say a mariachi. You want to hire a mariachi band. You're getting married, especially here in Los Angeles. It's a big deal. Sometimes that can be, if it's very focused on this kind of vibe, and the DJ would almost take away from it, right? Where the band is almost critical to the whole setting. But even with that, I think after an hour, you're going to get tired of hearing El Rey by Mr. Fernandez, right? Vicente Fernandez. Like you want to hear something else, maybe a dance track. And I think, and I've been to a couple, and I want to say I went to my cousin's wedding where he had an 80s band, right? So the 80s band was able
Yeah.
to play a multitude of 80s hits, but it has to be a variety. I think if it's too focused, then it's like a theme.
I agree. I think given the broadness of a typical wedding audience, which spans from like random college friends to your grandparents and everywhere in between, you do have to be cognizant of that. I think the ideal version is having a band, but then during the breaks and for the last hour, having a DJ or at least someone who's thoughtfully curating the music. You don't necessarily need to double dip, but I think expecting a band to be the only music for the whole night is hard because even if they have a very broad scope of what they can play, that
Yeah.
still limits it. You can't really do hip hop stuff. You can't, there's certain things that are outside of their
Yep.
scope of ability. So I think it does limit you a little bit, but there is something exciting in the energy of having live music in the room. I
Oh
think
yeah.
is not to be underrated. But I agree, it does handcuff you a little bit to kind of the straight down the middle wedding classics. I would say, you're not going to get any deep cuts in there, as where a DJ could sneak some in for you if that's what you wanted.
Exactly. And I don't want to take anything from bands. So if I and I haven't thought about my wedding, I mean, it's not like a dream, maybe more of a nightmare. But if I were, and Seth, this is a good question. If I were to get married, what would I have? I would definitely have a mix. And I have a good friend. His name is Michael Tiernan. This is not a plug, but he's a wedding singer. And he actually will do custom songs. He'll make it a very intimate experience. That's so unique because anyone can just pull out a freaking iPhone and start their playlist. And I think that's the other side of the DJ, is that can be a little bit, I won't say cold, but it's not as special. So I think the mix,
It's funny you say that too, because I think actually the accessibility to music, kind of, which we've talked about many times on this podcast, with the celestial jukebox of Spotify, where you can get anything at any time,
yeah,
has kind of changed the face of weddings, I think, a little bit, and wedding music, because I have been to weddings where the couple or their friends, whatever, make literally a mix and
yeah,
just plug it in, and as long as you've got good speakers, that can kind of cover the whole night, and suddenly you've saved, I don't even know how much they cost, $5,000-$10,000 on a DJ or a band, and it just plays. And on one hand, that's great because you can reroute, if that
yeah,
means then you do an open bar, I'm fully in support of the
yeah,
change.
yeah,
But I do think even if it's a DJ, there's something to be said about like being able to read the energy of the room, bring it up, bring it down, know when to slow things and do a dance. Like that, I think a good wedding DJ, less so even than the music selection, is their ability to MC the wedding and truly,
yeah,
like, in the same way that a good, like, this sounds goofy, but in the same way that like a good EDM DJ would, right?
yeah,
Where it's, you need to be able to bring them up when necessary, bring them down, control the vibe of the audience, and just outsourcing to a playlist, no matter how kind of like good on paper, I
yeah.
think overlooks that a bit. And so there's something to be said for a master of ceremonies running things, whether it's the front man of a band or the
Yeah.
DJ. But yeah, that's my thought. I'm not against the set it and forget it, but you do
Yeah.
lose that element of it, which I think
Oh,
can be
you
important.
do. And there's a little bit, you want it a little bit different than a house party. And even a lot of the MCs, there is that cheesy, put your hands together, everyone, almost like those strip bar
Yeah,
MCs, put your hands on
bringing out
stage.
cinnamon. Yeah,
Stage 2, April Rain, everyone. But there is that, just having a person there. And obviously, I'm a big proponent of vinyl because I think it brings in another layer of authenticity or even excitement when you see a live mix. But even now with the modern DJ systems, I think it's still good, and it's there is that spontaneity that you need as a DJ that a playlist just can't do. And someone can request. And that's the great thing about a DJ, is that usually right now, they have everything at their fingertips, so they can really do whatever you want. And there's all those idiosyncrasies of the couple and their special moments that that everyone shows. So those are some of the best weddings that I've been to, where there's those elements. You need them, right? You got to have that MC.
A little spice. I agree. One thing that I think is funny that I only became aware of relatively recently is the idea of like a must play list of songs you're required to play, and then do not play songs. So whether it's like what I've seen it's I went to a wedding and the groom was from University of Tennessee, and he's like, do not play anything by the band Alabama. Do not play like he like almost like acknowledging other colleges, like what Sweet Home Alabama, not allowed.
Oh man.
And then play like Rocky Top, which is like the fight song. So it gets his Tennessee friends up and in the mix. And that's a little much, but I do think this idea of like, we're giving you a wide berth to feel out the mood, but do not play these 10 songs or there's going to be an issue because they are antithetical to what we're about, or they have some connotation we don't like, which is funny.
I mean, think about just to take a pause, the drama of a wedding, right? It is a unique experience, which is maybe some of the reason why I've avoided it for 50 years. But
that's the reason for sure, is the music.
It's the music. No, but for example, people get married a second time and they have songs that they played at their first wedding that the new wife may know about. So there's these, as you said, these songs can generate feelings of love, but also bad memories and whatnot. And so it's tough. It's a thing you definitely got to navigate. You got to plan.
Scott, here's a question. I think I know the answer, but do you think there has ever been a person who has been married twice and had the same song as their first dance? The answer has to be yes, right? There's too many marriages over too many years. Someone had to have done this.
For sure. Almost, I would even go as far as to saying that the majority of songs are the same, or we're the same.
Yeah. There's maybe like 25 that, it's not 3, but it's not like unlimited. And some people have unique thoughts about it or have a particular song they're connected to, but and it's actually funny. I've heard songs before and I've been like, oh, that's a good choice. And you had sent me a list and I'm like, shit, every single one I've heard is on this list. Like it's way less creative than I would have thought when I heard it initially, but maybe I'm just not as close to it.
There are those cringe moments. That's the great thing about a wedding, is that you're getting people together. It's like a Thanksgiving on steroids.
Yeah, good way to say it.
Because you're getting different families. You're getting this love. Usually the dude is so freaking nervous, and the woman too. And it's just a cornucopia of like emotions. And so the wedding reset, then you add alcohol, copious amounts of alcohol.
Yeah.
And the music can just unleash years of repression, years of pent-up frustration. And you'll see some old dude just going at it for Baby Got Back. Some dude
with the tie tied sideways on his head. That's my uncle. Totally. I can already see him.
Yeah, you can see it 2 a.m. going, play Freebird, man. You didn't start talking about his first wife, and what, man. And there's just all that drama. And so the music is that soundtrack, which is just so much fun. And as we get into kind of these actual songs on the mix, let me ask you, Seth, what has been a cringe-worthy moment at a wedding with the music?
The one I saw this question earlier, the one I could think of is I had a friend who I will not name, who decided they had a beautiful wedding in New England somewhere.
Yeah.
And they had hired their friend to DJ the first half of the wedding, but this friend was like a legitimate like a house DJ almost, like who played like very obscure indie like deep trance kind of weird music that like just was, if you saw him in a bar or in a club at 1 a.m, you'd be like, this guy's great. But it was a wedding where there were grandparents and everybody was like, what the fuck is this music even? And so for like the first hour and a half or so, people like didn't know how to dance, and like they were into it. They were excited. Like, isn't this guy great? I was like, yeah, sure, but like I don't know what to do with it. And so that's the cringiest moment. It wasn't a moment. It was more like you guys know this is a wedding, right? Like you booked it. Yeah. You got to know the vibe this is bringing, but ultimately I think they didn't care. So I guess live your truth, play, get who you want and get the vibe you want. But I just remember being like, this is the weirdest choice for a wedding I've ever seen.
Well, it's a wedding's, I believe, this is my humble opinion, that's for everyone. So if it's
Yeah.
just for you,
Good
then
point. It's
just
a good point.
hang out and drop your E's and your Molly. But Grandpa's not going to be dropping Molly in the bathroom, coming out raving to some obscure techno from Germany. I mean,
Exactly.
unless that's his thing. But yeah, it's like, hey man, who knows this? It's like me dancing to mumble rap right now. Be like,
Yeah,
dude,
it's
what's
just
going on?
it's like it didn't fit the yeah, it was that's a great way to say it actually. It was clearly like for those two specifically, they're like, this is
Yeah.
great. And everybody else is like, we don't know what to do with
I
this.
don't know what
So
to do.
that's kind of but the second half was a more normal playlist and things went back and it was all good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, how about you? What's been your
It
experience?
was like a surreal moment. It was a friend of a friend kind of wedding. They're very open with their invitations, and being a single guy was cheap. Uh, and the closing song was, "If you can't be with the one you love the one you're with."
By Steven
And
Stills. Yeah,
and by
right.
Stephen Stills, and a beautiful song. But it was this, as you're
Yeah.
singing it, you're
Not
kind of
then though.
realize it's again, it's a great song. It has a slow, it's one of those classic Stephen Stills melodies. But I just was like,
That feels like a prank to me. That feels like someone was pulling a fastball and they're like, no one will notice that we're slipping this in. But
no one seemed to notice it. Sometimes, as we have always often said with Steely Dan songs, everyone's singing it, but no one really knows. These lyrics are a little more obvious. It's the actual chorus, but
yes.
that was like,
And the name of the song.
yeah, that was a moment where I'm like, huh, do they know? Or am I being pranked, or are they just very
Yes.
ironic?
Who's in on this? Who's not? Like who's aware? Yeah, completely.
But there are some, and we have a list here of, I think these are the fun ones. So, some of the worst songs to play in a wedding mix,
Yeah.
and
And
some,
many of them are obvious, right? It's basically anything that casts doubt upon the legitimacy or the trueness of the love of the wedding,
yeah,
right? It's all about like,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, you're so vain, you give love a bad name, fake love, suspicious minds. I mean, yeah, they're
no,
almost in the title, right? Yeah.
yeah. The one I like though in particular, one is "All My Exes Live in Texas,"
Oh yeah.
which is just, it's a very funny song just about divorce, and you have to leave town because you have so many ex-wives. But
That's why you hang your hat in Tennessee.
that's right. The list is extensive and whatnot, but I think some of the good songs and can be very touching. Now, going on the emotional tip,
Yeah.
I know at my brother's wedding, um, they played just some beautiful music that meant a lot to my mom and to my brother, that other people could appreciate, but something just very touching. And
Kind of
that's
their
what I,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, and that's what I like at the wedding, especially the components. As we talk about the components of what you have, the aisle, right? Like I went to a wedding in France actually, and they played "Over the Rainbow" by that big Hawaiian guy, Israel.
Israel, come on. Yeah, we're gonna butcher
Yeah.
his last name, but yes,
And
Izzy,
that
our
was
boy
the
Izzy.
song. And growing up as a Catholic, it's like, no, you only play this song as you're going through, though you're in the church. So for me to hear that in this procession it was very touching. It was very beautiful. And I want to get married. That's my first thought. Then I quickly reverted back to, oh my God, are you kidding me?
This is happening. Yeah.
This is that for life. So that part of the aisle was that procession. And I think people are getting more creative, as I've seen throughout the years with that song, as people's are opening up to different ways, people getting
I
married.
also have a theory here too, and I feel like this applies to a couple things we've talked about in the past, is like the rise of social media has made
Yeah.
people more inclined to, we're going to come up with a really creative dance to a song. Or like, I remember the big
Yeah.
thing was on The Office, they did this like in the church dance to the song. I think it's just called Forever by Chris Brown. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden everybody, I think
Yeah.
there may have even been a viral video before the show did it, but all of a sudden everybody we need to have our thing. We need to have our
Yeah.
entrance. We need to have our, because everybody's filming it. And so we got
That's
to
right.
do something crazy, which I think often leads to like, talk about cringy. Like it typically doesn't end super well, but I
Oh,
think that has changed the face a little bit of how and what people pick at their wedding because they want it to be notable or viral, I guess is the word. And I'm not super into that, but that definitely has changed the face of of that kind of stuff, right?
Oh, for sure. It's performative now. It is
That's the word.
it's an Instagrammable moment,
Hmm.
and something that people want to share, not only about the uh, extent which you paid for the wedding and location, if it's destination, but the how good is your dance. It's if you think about it, it's a classic TikTok moment.
Yeah.
Um,
It's very theater kid energy. Yeah.
yeah, but the one to me, the one that I always pay attention to is the first song of the at the wedding reception. Everyone, let's introduce Mr. and Mrs. Martineau, and you come out, and what's the song, Seth?
Yeah. For me.
And
Oh,
I know a lot of women are listening to this right now.
no, I mean the short answer is I don't have an answer because I think that's a pretty personal thing. So it's not like,
Yeah,
oh, this song's a banger. It's often so I will say when I looked at the list you sent me, I was surprised that like when I looked at these songs, I was like, wow, my friends are not as creative as I thought. Like they're like everything by Michael Bublé, great song, but like I didn't know
yeah,
that that was so obvious. And now I'm seeing and thinking about it. Like, of course it is. So
yeah,
um I'm a believer that rather than having to be like thematically specific to getting married, like, you know, what's a good example on here? Like You Are the Best Thing by Ray LaMontagne. Like that's a great
yeah,
song, but
yeah,
it's so on the head
yeah,
that it's like, ugh, it kind of makes you like, you,
yeah,
I think that that song should be something that is specific to the two of you, even if
yeah,
it's like, even if thematically it doesn't fit the wedding. That's
yeah.
my take. You
I
know what I
think
mean? Make
it
it
is.
yours. Don't feel like you need to fit the theme.
Exactly. There's something that you've shared. It could be the first time you met or your first date, and no matter what it is, but I think it's people see that they can be a part of that. They realize this was a special moment. Although I got to be honest with you, there is one song, and it has been done, and I think there's a reason why. But if I were to get married, uh, can I say it? You want me to say it? Should I say it? It would
I mean,
be
unless you're saving it, I
no.
think you can reveal it.
No, for me, if I were going to get married, the first song would be God Only Knows by the Beach Boys. And
It's a good one.
yeah. And even the opening there, I may not always love you, which I thought it was kind of funny, but um,
Well, it's that's the it basically it that's a bit of a misnomer, right? Because then it
yeah,
goes into like actually it means like that means the world must be over because that's the
yeah,
only way that would happen. So it does explain it away a bit.
it does, but I just found it beautiful. And I envision hearing it in a very large space. But I never envision who I'm with. It's just more me hearing the song at a wedding for myself. Maybe that's what it
Relatively
is.
recently, maybe a year ago, there was footage that came out of is it Dennis Wilson that sings that one? And he like played it at someone's wedding, and I just want to know who that rich person was who got the actual guy
Oh,
to sing
yeah.
God Only Knows at their wedding.
Oh, some
So
tech founder. You
what a
know
get.
it. Yeah. But that's so to me that is one that I definitely would do. But what's if you've seen a good wedding set, like one of your favorite weddings, how was the music a part of that? Like, what do you remember from that?
Actually, the one I was thinking of was a friend of mine here in Chicago, and I that's where I was sort of not introduced to, but I saw this idea of like we interweaving a band and a DJ really well, where the
Yeah.
band is like the energy and the DJ is like the kind of like make sure all the hits get played. Like let's make sure we nail the things that people expect to hear. Took advantage of the dance floor, was a big wedding, and I think the bigger it is, the more the band can kind of like
Yeah.
match that energy.
Yeah.
And it's mostly the trick is as much as like again, this is maybe not my style. For a band, for something like this, you want to play songs that people know. You don't want to go
Yeah.
obscure.
Yeah.
You want to stay within the songbook. You want to make stuff danceable, and you want it to be like it's a rare time when some of the obvious choices, like playing shout and play, you know, whatever it is,
The chicken dance.
yeah, are like you get excited when they come on because you know that's part of the, you know,
Yeah.
that's coming eventually. So it's
Yeah.
like people are waiting for it, like people are waiting for you know, a band to play their hit song on the encore or something. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of what the energy feels like to me.
I think for me, it's something for everyone when they carefully consider who's at the party and their
Yep.
philosophy, as I mentioned, that this is a group celebration. It's a team sport, if you will. So we're going to play songs that, for my case, it'd be from the 90s. Then we're going to play something for my parents, play something a little more modern for the kids, and then play those classics that are almost part of just wedding tradition. But it
Yes.
is great to see your uncle at 2 a.m. dancing to Leonard Skinner with his tie as a headband. There's
Oh yeah.
something that you're like, yeah, the wedding's not just for these people, it's for them. It's a team celebration. And that's why I always find the best weddings. Okay, Seth, so you've had the reception. It's 2 in the morning. Your uncle's in the corner drinking Hennessy. The bride and groom are up to the hotel rooms. It's that last part of the evening. What song would you play to close it up?
So mine is of a particular mine has a little bit of a like personal behind it. It would be Don't Stop Believing by Journey. And the reason it is because that was the song at my college bar when they closed, was the song basically saying everybody needs to get the hell out. Like this song is the last song, close your tabs. The lights are coming on after this one. And it was every single night. So that was almost like it was a mental trigger to like, okay, time to wrap things up. And even though a lot of people at my wedding wouldn't necessarily be like, get that and be college people, there would be some. And to me, like you could do Closing Time by Semisonic, which is obvious and a good
Yeah.
one. But to me, I'm going with Don't Stop Believing and throwing it back to my Emory days.
Good for you. That's a good one. For me, it's tough. I've seen so many good last songs. Obviously, the ones that I've heard, "Hey Jude," which is great for the last one, as it's kind of a traditional closing song.
It's a
But
good sing along too to show people
yeah,
off as they're getting their last drink.
yeah, I think for me, one is funny growing up in California, but it's "Sweet Home Alabama" by Leonard Skinner.
Hmm.
There's something really, it's almost a cultural song, I'd say, for everyone. Everyone knows the song lyrics. It's very easy to sing. It's somewhat danceable, but it's mainly a stand up and cheer. And that one I thought was a good way to just afterwards just shut off. DJ closes up, right? The staff comes in to clean, and it's over.
Yeah, and people move on to the next adventure for the night. I think that's a good one. It's all about like changing the vibe just
Yeah,
enough where people are like, okay, this is a signal. Like the
yeah,
time has come. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So yeah,
Oh, for
it's great.
sure. And well, Seth, this has been a really interesting episode because, as I mentioned, you and I are in this single phase, not married yet. Here we are talking intimately about weddings, and one day,
Hey,
maybe.
we're objective observers of an age old art. I think we have a lot of insights to give from that person.
I think it's a great single guy's view of the wedding. Everyone have a fantastic weekend. If you get married or if you have any wedding mixes, please send us your favorite songs, closing songs, procession songs, opening songs. We'd love to hear them.
Sir. All right.
All right, everyone.
Enjoy wedding season, Scott.
Okay, man. See you guys.
See ya.